Hey guys, another One Take review, and today I want to talk about Wet Leg's new self-titled debut album. That's right, it's finally out, the debut album from what is easily one of, if not the most hyped up indie rock band from England within the past couple of years. Now, before you go ahead saying, Zane, that's such a very specific niche that you just mentioned, English indie rock of the past couple of years, why would that be the thing that you mentioned? Why not just English band or just indie rock? Allow me to remind you the hype that Dry Cleaning, Squid, I don't know, Shame, Black Country New Road have all gotten over the past couple of years. There's a lot, but Wet Leg kind of stands as one band that doesn't really only appeal to sort of certain corners of the music industry, certain corners of music geekdom, if you will, a lot of corners that I personally involve myself in. Wet Leg is appealing to a lot of more mainstream indie almost. As such, there's been accusations of, oh, they're industry plants, which, I mean, that doesn't mean they can't make good music, even if they are, but besides that point, industry plants or not, there was obviously a lot of potential that was secretly hiding in the Wet Leg name. I think that many will mistake Wet Leg's debut as very basic, average indie rock, and while it is very conceptually and thematically tame for the most part anyway, I do think that the record overall has a bit of a punkish kick to it. At the same time, Wet Leg never really embraced punk energy to the fullest either. This actually works out incredibly well for the band, as it shows that they're capable of working in a controlled environment with a sort of carefree attitude, while also maintaining a level of energy that never goes unnecessarily off of the rails. Wet Leg also delivers some interesting and maybe a little bit odd performance work here, as they sort of walk the line between normalcy and the avant-garde to the point that's almost admirable, even if there are at least a couple of tracks here or there that are just generally pretty normal and lack any and all of that avant-garde I just mentioned. It feels like the project are just, standing on top of a diving board waiting for the signal to be allowed to just dive into post-punk infested waters. Instead, they decide to just kind of climb back down the ladder that led them up to that diving board and focus on more simplistic and less complex progressions that have defined the music of peers like Black Country New Road. Even with that lack of progressiveness or complexity that appeals to a lot of people who are into this particular style of music, I do think that Wet Leg has a lot of different aspects of their sound that do stand out still. The vocal work here is very strong, while the bass and drums are also quite prominent. The bass on Wet Leg's debut in particular is very unique and actually probably one of the more unique bass tones I've heard in indie rock within the past couple of years, with songs like Convincing kind of being almost defined by the quality of those bass lines. There's also some interesting production techniques to be found here. Wet Leg's self-titled EP was produced by Dan Carey, who's worked with other indie favorites and a sort of oddball cult following favorites like Squid as well as Goat Girl. Goat Girl's release On All Fours last year, which was an album that Carey produced, even though I didn't review it on this channel as it didn't exist, or this channel didn't exist at the time, was also a very solid album that also very much highlighted Dan Carey's production skills, and I just wanted to point that album out. But anyways, back to Wet Leg's self-titled. I think that Carey's work with prior artists and his experience as a producer greatly shows here with the polished slickness of songs like Wet Dream, for example, that really, again, set the tone for the record. Cleanness being set aside, however, and I feel like there is maybe a sense of over-polish on Wet Leg's debut, as in, things sound a bit too commercial. I don't mean commercial in the way of trying to appeal to a larger audience too hard. Obviously, Wet Leg are too early in their career to really be doing that. I mean too commercial in the way of I feel like I would actually hear parts of this album in a real commercial, and that's not a good thing, necessarily anyway. I mean, when I hear a song like the aforementioned Wet Dream and I think, man, this would really fit in a Macy's commercial, that's not a good sign. There's nothing inherently wrong with that sound, but it definitely does come across as off, especially from a band that's maybe the single most hyped up outfit within all of indie music right now across all genres. So, overall, in conclusion, Wet Leg's debut album is probably going to be getting a lot of criticism. After all, it isn't particularly original or anything like that, far from it, actually. However, it does demonstrate the first work of an already excellent band that is perfectly executing a sound that they very obviously well understand and they're kind of bursting with potential at this point. Would I like to see them go in a more creative direction? Yes, absolutely, as well as maybe a little bit more of a raw direction, but for the time being, this is a very, very strong debut, and if they do release better albums in the future, maybe my opinion on this one will go down a little bit, but as it stands, I greatly enjoyed Wet Leg's self-titled debut, so I'm gonna give it 4 stars out of 5. It was a very fun listen that I'd highly recommend. Don't listen to people that are like, oh, don't listen to them because they're the industry plants or whatever. People that think that industry plants can't make good music are stupid and wrong, objectively. So, with that being said, 4 stars out of 5, and that's the end of this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.